on? This is Stu.
This is Jay.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about publishing. And we're going to talk about self-publishing a bit, as well as what people call now traditional publishing, which is the model that existed for, most of the 20th century. So here's what you really got to know about publishing. Publishing is the way that you get what you've written to the people who want to read it. That is publishing. And there's a million different ways to go about doing that. Some people call this distribution, but I really just call it publishing. Distribution is maybe an older term that has to do with getting physical books to physical stores, convincing physical stores to buy the physical books and then try to sell them.
And of course, if you're self-publishing, the most realistic place that you would start would be in an ebook format, which in that case your distribution would be the same as your publishing, because you're going to be hosting it through a site that's going to do both for you at the same time. So Amazon has really changed the landscape for publishing, with ebooks especially, and we saw this big lawsuit with the big five publishers and Amazon, because the big publishers wanted to control the ebook prices, while Amazon said,
we want to sell them for $9.99.
Yeah, we want to sell them for what we think that they're worth. And this caused a big split, and now of course you're seeing a lot of newer authors, very successful authors, maintain the control of their own ebooks while outsourcing the physical copies of their books to a different publisher. So we're not seeing kind of this brokered joint deal that you would have seen in the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Yeah, so that's a great platform to leap off of. So here's the advantages of an ebook and self-publishing an ebook for those of you who are not deep into the writing game, at least for writing books. And the advantage is that there's pretty much zero upfront cost to you, and you can move from your written product to the market extremely quickly. And there's advantages to that. So first of all, the no cost is really good. Essentially, if you publish through Amazon or one of these other things, if you do Smashwords or whatever company you want to try to get the ebook in different places, essentially it doesn't cost you anything to submit it, to do anything like that. Now, Amazon and CreateSpace actually do sell like editorial services, but I don't really recommend those. You're probably going to be, because they're expensive, and you're probably going to be better off learning by doing and learning the hard way. So when you get it to market very quickly after you've written it, you're going to get a lot of immediate feedback on your work, because people might read it and people will, give it a rating and tell you what's wrong with it if you don't have anyone to read it ahead of time. And that's good, because then you can actually put out more books just going straight to ebook. You can, rather than if you were going to try to do it the traditional way, write a book and then try to query a bunch of agents to then try to get it published. You're looking at a long process to get it to market. That's going to take your time and effort. You don't have to do that. You just put it right out, and you can immediately turn around and start writing the next book. And after a year, if you try 4 different books, you get an idea of what people actually liked from you, and you can see about maybe doing more of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're getting a lot more feedback, and the feedback isn't in the ivory tower, let's say, because you're not getting the feedback from the agent who's getting the feedback from publishers before it even gets to market. You're getting it directly from the market, which is more important for your sales. And this is the power of the internet, is we've kind of blasted through the gatekeepers, and you no longer have to let your work be determined by a few select people. It can be chosen by the audience that you're looking to target. And I think that's really powerful, and it's a really great thing about self-publishing. Now, immediately in self-publishing, you're looking at a much smaller market, because simply because not as many people are going to know that your book exists.
Yeah, you don't have like an expensive marketing campaign to get the word out that a publisher will do, although we could talk about how that's changed.
Right.
You will not have, unless you could spend your own money on advertising as much as you want. So in that way, the gatekeeper's also kind of been eliminated. You can run your own ad campaign.
Right.
Or hire a firm that does that specially and run it for whatever amount of time you think is valuable.
Appropriate.
Yeah, whatever amount of time you think is valuable or appropriate, rather than having it in the hands of a publisher. Now, and the advantage is, a traditional publisher is trying to predict the impact of your book. They're trying to predict the sales of your book. And they're trying to weigh that against the costs of producing that book and running their whole business. So they're not sure how that book is going to be received, but they're trying to make a best guess. When you just put it out in the market, you have an immediate idea of how it's received, and you can make any adjustments that you have from that. And because they're acting in a predictive way, they have to mitigate a lot of risk. So you can take bigger risks with an ebook, have possibly bigger rewards, which is also good. So
the other thing is you are the biggest advocate for your own work, which is not the case if you are going through a traditional publisher. A lot of that personal power is ceded from you, and there's going to be pressure to make rewrites to achieve what they see as what the market is demanding, which can lead you away from the original intention of your story.
Yeah.
And we saw this a lot in screenwriting, but it's also true in any kind of long form work as well. I know a lot of times there's a push for female protagonists, strong female protagonists. There's nothing wrong with that, but if that's not your story and someone says, "Oh, this is a great story," how would it work if you rewrote the protagonist to be female?
then you have to
rewrite your book. And,
yeah, I should say. Okay. Let me take a second. Let me talk about what the process for actually publishing a book in the traditional manner is, because that's a really important point. Is that they're going to be asking you to make alterations to fit basically what are classic genres. The classic science fiction. Actually, classic science fiction genre. They don't really want that anymore.
Yeah.
What they want is more fantastical science fiction, or I don't know, social justice science fiction. So when you want to publish a book through a traditional publisher, what you have to do is you can't just ask a publisher to publish your book. It doesn't work that way. So what you do is first you have to write a bunch of letters to literary agents. And you can find literary agents. There's a big list of them on the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America website. So they have a big list of ones that you can look at. Or you can find, usually, you can figure out what agent represents an author that writes in a similar style to you. You have to send them a query letter, and there's a certain format to the query letter. You can look it up. Science Fiction, Fantasy Writers of America, again, they have a really good information for like what kind of query letter you can write. You write the query letter and you send it to the agent, along with a couple of things that the agent will specify on his or her website or whatever. And that's usually like a synopsis. So in the query letter, you'll have an introduction and what we would call a log line for your book, which is like a 1 to 2 sentence extreme condensation of the main idea of the book. And then you'll have a 1 to 2 paragraph synopsis of the book and what happens. Then you'll have a final paragraph that'll say essentially what books you've published before, or whether you've never published a book, or something about you that would make the agent think that you might be a good person to represent.
Yeah, another example would be like your online presence, your author profile, the reach that you have personally So if you have a blog, if you have websites where you publish things, because another thing that an agent is looking for is the consistency of the work. They're going to be less likely to take on someone who is relatively unknown than they would someone who has a big backlog of work
that has been proven.
Yeah, that has.
And especially if you already have if you have a large online presence, that actually helps you a lot. If you have.
And I think actually that's how 50 Shades of Grey happened. Actually got published in a traditional sense was because
it was Twilight fan fiction.
Yeah, it was Twilight fan fiction that went. It went viral, and she just what's her name? Stephanie
Meyer?
No, that's Twilight.
Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. Anyway,
it's garbage.
She went to a publisher and said, "Look at all this money I've made. Don't you want a piece of this pie?" And they're like, yeah."
Yeah.
So, those sorts of things are what's going to entice an agent to look at you, and the reason it's going to entice an agent is because that's what the agent is going to use to entice a publisher.
Yeah. You're looking at what. You're trying to present them with the least amount of risk and the most amount of gain.
Yeah.
So if you have that, that's good. And contrary to popular belief, belief that tends to circulate on the internet, self-publishing does not mean that later on you can't go the traditional route.
Right.
In fact, it can help you. You could say I self-published this book, and I've sold 2,000 copies. But generally speaking, if you self-publish and you work hard at it and you're successful, you're not going to be super tempted to go the traditional route because it will, in most cases, end up being less money.
Right.
If you've already established yourself.
Yeah. What you're doing is you're splitting your profits with a bunch of middlemen. Now, right now, if you're self-publishing through Amazon, Amazon gets a cut.
Yeah. So you actually will get anywhere from 35% to 70% of the sale price of an ebook, and the rest is the cost of Amazon publishing it as the publisher of record. They're actually the publisher of record when you self-publish, and through them, and then they also will charge a distribution fee depending on your setup. There's a couple different ways that you can go through Amazon. Just briefly, the lowest price you can sell a book for on Amazon is 99 cents. You can only give away your book as part of like a promotion. So 99 cents is the bottom floor. At 99 cents, you're going to be paid 35 cents on the dollar. And people see that and they're like, well, Amazon's getting all the money. It's much, much worse from a regular publisher. You're looking to get 5 to 10 cents on the dollar. Virtually, it really gets eaten up. But if you sell your ebook for $5.99, $4.99, you can get 70 cents on the dollar. But you have to pay Amazon a flat fee for the delivery, which is like 15 cents. That's for them to because they've negotiated to send the books over like the WhisperNet service, if you remember that. I think that's still around. But they could send it to people over the cell networks to their Kindle. At least the older Kindles. I don't know if the newer ones still have the 3G in them. I have to look, but they negotiated that. So part of the distribution service is to send the ebook to someone, it costs like a nickel or 10 cents. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. So those are the two options for them, and you're gonna see there's a couple different setups. If you go through Smashwords or something else, or distribute to Barnes and Noble, that you're gonna have a similar kind of setup. For the traditional publishing thing, once the agent decides I'm going to represent this manuscript, they basically work for free. At that point, they're going to work on a commission of like 15% or 10%
of
sales, which is a lot. So you look at that 35 cents on the dollar. It's like, well, 15% is going to end up being the agent fee or things like that. So the agent gets paid once you make the publishing deal. They're the ones who shop to publishers. Publishers won't pay attention to you unless you're in like nonfiction and you're writing a technical book. Like if you're writing a book on, I don't know, the Boer Wars in South Africa, and it's a historical document, you could probably talk directly to publishers of nonfiction. You don't necessarily need an agent, but for fiction, you're going to need an agent. And so they're the ones who negotiate the deal. Then basically you sign a contract with a publisher, and most people don't get an advance, just so you know. Especially not for your first book. You're probably not going to get an advance. That means you're not going to get paid cash up front. They will publish the book, and then they will pay you royalties on the book. This is an important note, is that people don't understand. People hear the word royalties, and they think they know what it means, and they often don't. And I run into a lot of people online who think they know what royalties are, and they don't. Royalty has to do with the use of a copyrighted work. When you sign the contract with the publisher, invariably in almost every case, you give them full control over to manage the rights of that. Then they pay you a royalty based on the sale of each book. They get the publisher gets a royalty, and you get a royalty, and they have an expense and they have a profit, and the bookstore has an expense to buy the book and they have a profit. And so what you get paid at the end of the day is just the royalty from the initial sale that the publisher keeps track of. Amazon uses the same word. They say they pay you 35% royalties because that's what it is. They're the publisher of record. They're paying out royalties. They're not. You're not selling it and then having your own set of profits because you are not the corporation that's actually engaging in the sales.
So your business model is basically to create intellectual property that you're selling to a publisher, and then you're basically earning back royalty on your intellectual property. You're not making money back on your physical book necessarily.
Yeah.
And so that's important to note, because if you're going the traditional route and you're getting paid royalties, what a lot of people also don't understand is that, yes, an advance, if you do get an advance, it's a lump sum up front, but that's a loan. That's not just free money. So it's like, yeah, if you get a $10,000 advance, you might think, holy crap, I made it. I can quit my job.
Yeah.
The problem is you won't make a cent after that until you have made that amount of royalties to make up that advance.
Yeah, so they're paying you in advance. They're not paying you an additional, award sum.
Yeah.
So it's like, I got a $10,000 advance. That means they anticipate on you getting paid more than $10,000 in royalties, and they really want to entice you to do it, so they'll give you up front.
Yep.
So the first $10,000 of royalties, they just keep.
Yep. Because they already paid you up front.
Yeah, they already paid you those royalties.
And this is true in music as well. And it's something that a lot of beginners just run up against, and they think, man, I got all this money, and they spend it on partying and this and that, and realize
if you ever hear about people owing their record company money, you're like, how does that happen? Well, the record company pays them in advance, and that's a loan.
Yeah,
they don't make that much money back in what the record company would pay them in royalties. They don't make any money.
Yeah. So in a lot of cases, what an advance is, it's enough rope to hang yourself with. So that's another, I would say, a big plus in self-publishing, because a lot of people, especially if you're young in the game and you get a big deal like that, you're not going to have the self-discipline to use that advance wisely towards the next project. You're going to use it on living expenses, which you really don't want to do.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, is if you're in this for the long game, you got to keep in mind that sales accumulate over time. Yeah. So, yeah, you're not getting paid in advance. And by the way, no one's going to pay you a $10,000 advance.
Right.
So just get that out of the way.
Just get that out of the way.
For the days of the multi-$1,000 advance are long since passed, especially if you're a first author. The only case where they would give anyone an advance of any sum is that they really anticipate you being able to publish it with someone else, and they want to give you an extra incentive to publish with them.
Yeah.
And that it's going to make a lot of money. In most cases, you're not going to get an advance, you're going to get a royalty deal. But if you're in this for the long run, you're going to be collecting those things over time, and the more books you put out, the more sources of that income you're going to get, and eventually you can, if you're really persistent and you stick with it a couple of years, you can make money in the publishing business, but it doesn't happen overnight. You have to be patient. You have to trust the process, or it's just going to go nowhere.
Yeah, as we talked about process, one of the processes for publishing is don't expect a bunch of people to buy your first book. This is kind of a marketing idea, is that if you've only got one book out, there's no body of work for the consumer to look at and really judge your book effectively. So if you have one book out, say you've got no reviews on it, and you're getting a bunch of people who are hitting the page looking at it, what is their incentive to buy a book from an author they've never heard of before that nobody's reviewed? And this is kind of a shit rolls downhill kind of deal. The more work you do, the more things that you have out there, the more consumer confidence there is.
Yeah.
So the more you have on the marketplace, even if you have relatively few reviews, people can look back and say, more from this author, and like, wow, this guy's got like 6 books out. Maybe I ought to check one of them out.
Yeah, this guy clearly is the real deal.
Yeah,
because he's written more than one book.
Right, and this brings us to a point that's really important, especially if you're going to self-publish, is that you must be the jack of all trades.
Yeah, you got to develop some skills that aren't just writing words.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of writers struggle with. They say, well, I want to be a writer, I don't want to be a businessman. And you gotta flush that idea down the toilet, because as an author in a self-publishing field, you are an entrepreneur, and your product is your creative property. So that means that you have to do all the marketing, and part of marketing is designing is design. A big part of self-publishing is design, which is shocking to a lot of people.
Yeah, you got to design your book covers, or be willing to pay to have them designed by somebody who knows what they're doing.
And if you're a normal person like Stu or I, you don't have that kind of scratch laying around to just pay someone $800 to design your cover.
Yeah, and developing design skills can really pay off in the long run.
For sure, because you can develop for your webpage.
Yeah, you can do all that yourself.
There's all kinds of stuff you can do. So design is a huge skill to learn, and it's really important. And I would say after writing would be your top priority.
Yeah, and the thing is, some people, the other thing is, some people just don't have the visual design bug, that they don't, or gene, or whatever it is. Some people, it's just like they don't really get visual design, and if you're one of those people, you shouldn't feel bad about that. You should look to people who do know visual design and be able to really pursue good value for designing your web page and things like that. There's a lot of crappy web designers out there. Ask your friends if it looks good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad book cover designers out there. I see a lot of bad book covers that cost money to design.
Twitter is notorious for this. You just look at Twitter for book covers.
Yeah, just look at Twitter book covers and you just be like, oh my god, there's some bad book covers out there. Yeah, some of them are cringy. And the thing is, most of them aren't even designed by the authors. So you think like, oh, the author designed this book cover to try to save money, and he's not really, he's not really a book cover designer. He's not a graphic artist. But in a lot of cases, it was designed by a graphic artist that just doesn't have a lot of skill, or just doesn't know book cover design.
Doesn't know book cover design. Yeah.
And that's something, you could pay for art on your cover, but there's more than just the art. Like if you pay for a painting that goes on your book cover, you should still have to have a graphic designer or learn enough graphic design to get the lettering and everything correct so that it like stands out on that Amazon page.
Typography is really important.
Or would look good on the shelf in paper. I realize this is actually a huge topic. Talking about book cover design. There's so much to talk about with that. Let me. So there's that in mind. Like the book cover is your biggest advertiser.
Yeah. Maybe let's spend a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, we should do a whole podcast on book covers. Let me go one layer over and talk about, if you're self-publishing, do you only publish ebooks? The answer is no. You can publish physical copies of your book using print-on-demand applications or print runs. And those are two things that you can do. So print-on-demand, there's a couple of them. CreateSpace is one. Amazon now has it's in beta, and I actually use it in beta. I tested it out, and it works pretty good. Amazon has a direct publishing. It's CreateSpace, but it's managed through their web, their ebook portal, which makes it really easy. Makes it really easy to manage that physical copy. So print on demand, what it is you format the book yourself and you design everything, or you have somebody format it and design it for you. And when somebody wants to buy the book through Amazon, Amazon has these very, very cool machines that will just print out the book and mail it to them. So you're not having to, the risk is very, very low. And you're not having to put up a bunch of money up front to have a bunch of different copies printed and have them sitting at your house and try to sell them through your house.
Yeah, just
which is the old way that you self-publish.
Yeah, having a box of your books just sitting in the garage
and someone like orders one and you box it up and send it to them. That's a pain. If you can get another company to manage that for you, it's really good. Now the potential profit margin per book is lower, but there's such lower risk. I think it's worth it, especially if you're starting out, because you don't want to invest $5,000 to have a print run of your books that you don't know if you're going to sell, or you print run them and then you figure out you maybe want to revise them, and what the hell do you do with them? When you're doing print on demand, you can revise that book and then change what's being printed on demand immediately.
Yeah,
so that the next person who buys the book gets the revised edition.
Yeah, and that's something amazing about self-publishing now, because the last thing you want is to have a box of your books in the garage that maybe you sold to, and you're really proud of it. So when your friends come over, you come show them the box in the garage, and they give you the sarcastic, "Oh, that's cool, man," and maybe you feel that pressure, and you're like, "Well, here, you should read it," and then you start giving your books away, and you don't want to do that.
Then what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
You want to take yourself seriously, and so you need to treat it like a business.
Yeah, and your friends are not your audience anyway.
Right, which I think is another podcast.
So print on demand there's a couple other companies that do it. Print on demand is a really good option. And here's another benefit to self-publishing is that you can revise the book really quickly anytime you want. So if you put out the ebook and there's typos, which there's always going to be, there's typos in professionally published book. There's all kinds of typos all the time, right? Typos just never seem to get ironed out. You go pick up a copy of Ivanhoe, there's typos. You pick up a copy of Lord of the Rings, there's typos. These things never seem to get ferreted out, no matter how many years go by and how many revisions there are.
Yeah.
But if you want to revise something, even a serious revision, you can do that. You edit your ebook file and just re-upload it to Amazon, and within 24 hours, people are buying and reading the revised edition.
Yeah.
And if they already bought the ebook before, they can just download the new version.
Yeah.
Which is really cool as well.
So, hierarchy of skills and importance to close up here. You obviously always want to work on your writing, because that's your product. Design is huge, because it's going to make its way into every part of your business model. Having a serious online presence, so if it's a blog, if it's a web page,
Twitter account.
You also must interact with social media. And if you're like me and you hate social media, that might frustrate you, but you have to. If you don't have an online presence, you don't exist. So whether you're going to be self-published or you're trying to publish through a major publication company, that's what you need. And I think we got to close out there.
Yeah, and last skill, learn how to format an ebook. I have a video on it on YouTube. Got to find it out. This has been Riders of the Dawn. This is Stu.
This is Jay.
And you guys have a great, great day. Oh, you can find me at davidvstewart.com, dbspress.com.
You can find me at matthewjwellman.com. Later.
Bye.